Are you in need of more mid-bass on your Indian motorcycle? Well, of course you are, because you're watching this video. So what we're going to be doing today is walking you through a process of installing a port inside your Indian motorcycle saddlebags. So in this video, we're going to take you through the process of installing a port inside the saddlebag, like I said. Now, I want to preface this that I'm not promoting this exact port. We're kind of testing this as one of the ones that we bought. It looked really cool. It has its pros and cons. It's kind of makes things a little bit more difficult to install. We're going to be doing some more research and testing before either we 3D print our own or we promote a company to make it easier for y'all, because the process I'm going to show you looks super sleek and clean. You'll never see it, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So, start by, why would you want a port in your saddlebag? Well, when you put a mid-bass, such as we have, in a saddlebag, it turns the saddlebag into a speaker enclosure. So when it comes to ported and sealed enclosures, normally you get better performance out of a ported enclosure. It comes down to the enclosure design. I'm not going to lie to you until you know the exact science behind it. I just know when you have a properly built and sealed and ported enclosure that's tuned to that mid or subwoofer or mid bass, sounds phenomenal. You get a lot better bass response. So that's essentially what we're trying to create here. And I notice I said sealed and ported because our saddlebags, we have sealed the top. So this is a topper, which will be next video on installing that. So this now is an entire enclosure, and our port is right there. And it goes all the way back here, just behind the mid bass. So we've got it from here down. So what I'm going to do in this video is take you through that process of installing one in our saddlebag, test fitting it, getting the port hole cut, installed through the test fit. Then we're going to pull all that back out, and in the next video we're going to show you installing the topper, and then we're going to get the bags all completely finished, wired up, loaded up, and put on our Indian Chieftain, because we have our event coming up. We want some killer mid-bass on this bike, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's start by talking about what port we used. This is the Speed by Design big bass port. It's a 3-inch port, and it comes with a straight piece, a 90-degree elbow that is stuck on here. Boom. Which, let me cover this now, which we'll just cover later in the video too, is you see how this is a shorter part and this flange is much deeper and taller? That's going to make a difference when you go to put this in the bag and mark the hole. You'll see why here in a few minutes. Just wanted to go over that now. Smaller flange, or narrower, thicker flange. Now for the actual flange itself. This is ridiculously thick, nice CNC metal. The whole flange is, I'm guessing, CNC aluminum, or it could be steel, could be wrong. Anodized black. It's got a steel ring on the back and utilizes 4 1/8-inch Allens. So once you remove those 4 Allens, like I said, 1/8-inch, you drop this down and you're going to see the metal ring plus an O-ring, because on the back of this it's got an O-ring flange. That way, once you've put it together and you tighten it down, it sandwiches, creating an airtight gasket, because obviously when you're building a speaker enclosure you want airtight. And then it's got 3 1/8-inch Allens that are inside of here, so once it's up in there you can tighten them down and it compresses against this flange right here, giving you a good solid seal there. So I really like this. The downfall is that with how we did ours, where we wanted to put it underneath the saddlebag, we actually had to cut this ring, which was kind of sad because it's such a nice clean flange that we didn't want to mess with it. But the way we put it on there, it left us with no choice. But what I do like about how we did it is you can't see it. So that's where I'm saying down the road, when we do more of these, we're probably going to go with a plastic version so it's easier to cut and to fit. But for this job, I mean, this flange is absolutely amazing. Maybe had we put it in the side right here and face the port up, that would have been a different situation, which we might look into that down the road. But for what we did, we're going to go into the bottom, which is going to be right down here, which is going to cause us, when we go to cut this out, you'll see we had to cut into this, and then we had to notch into it more to clear this flange, because we're going to put this flange right down here. It's hidden. It looks really clean once it's done. I'm not worried about the paint on the bottom of the bag right now. We will be getting these repainted later. So for right now, it came out really well. We like the way it looked. So let's go ahead and jump on inside the saddlebag and show you that process. So the first thing that I want to do before we go cutting out this port is I just like to take off these 2 feet. It's just simple 2 bolts per side, 10 millimeter. We're going to bust those out, and then we're going to get tracing this out. Now that we have those feet out, that's not necessarily required, but I just like to do it. So what I'm going to end up doing is I've got to set this port in here, and I'm going to put it in there and orient it, because we want the port to come out above this, and we're going all the way back in this corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit this in here, I'm going to orient it like this, and instead of hugging it so tight, I'm going to bring it out just a smidge, and I'm going to trace this as much as I can with a Sharpie. That way I can measure across in 2 points to get the center spot, pre-drill it from the inside, and then I'm going to take a 3-inch hole saw from the outside and drill through the bag, and then we'll start clearancing things and whatnot, and then get it all assembled. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show it to you a little bit closer when we get that part done. I'm going to show on camera, but right back there in the back of the bag, we went ahead and traced the elbow. I went ahead in here, put the elbow almost as far back as I could get it, and then I rotated it in just a little bit and pulled it away from the wall to give us a little bit more room when it gets back there, as we realized once we did the first one, it was super uber tight back there. So what we did is we traced the outside of the lip, and we tried to mark as close to center as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an 1/8 inch drill bit, we're going to hit that spot first, and then we're going to flip it around with that hole and hit it with our big boy hole saw, which will cut all the way out here. We'll drop the flange in, we'll trim all this around, clearance it, and then we'll start getting it put together. Application. This is a 3.5 inch hole saw. We checked it against the flange. So this big boy is going to drill a big old nice hole right here in the back of our bag, because like I said, I want a good down firing port there. So let's go ahead, and there's no going back from it from this point. There is if you're good at plastic welding like we are. So let's go ahead and get this hole cut out, get it cleaned up, and start the modifications further. Now this is where the real fun begins, is because in order for this to go down, it hits right here where the curve of this bag is. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up taking my oscillating tool and shaving along this line and smoothing this out, so that way this flat surface is extended out to here. And then when we end up busting through inside the saddlebag, we put this back in here with some tape and everything. We plastic weld all this back here, and we put a skim of panel bond over it to seal it back up. So now is the fun part, that I've cut all the fun part. So you can see here where, let's get this turned around. So right here you can see where we cut away here. I went a little bit further so that way I can sand it. There's a little bit more sanding to do here, clean this up. And then like I said, we're going to end up plastic welding that closed right there. You can see we got our port here. Right here we've marked it, so we're going to end up cutting off one of these sections. It's not going to be rotated like this. We just put it in there to get our port installed. So you can see the port is in there nice and tight. So what we're going to do is angle it a little further back towards the back. And then what you want to do is, with a Sharpie or a China marker, you're going to want to mark this to follow the speaker opening. So you'll see we're going to end up cutting that at that angle, so that way when we drop our 10-inch mid-bass in here, it'll clear this and it's not in the way. So off camera, we finished up our bag. I'm not going to fully install the port and everything just yet, because we still have the topper and the brace and everything to put in here. So the topper and the brace and everything will be in the next video, and then we'll do the final assembly of all of this so that way you guys can see what it looks like. So a couple of things I want to touch base on is, so for ours, as you remember, we cut into here, so we did make sure we plastic welded all this closed, smoothed it out. Like I said, eventually these will get painted, so we'll do some body work here at that time. But then on the inside, what we did on the one side when we plastic welded it over here, we made sure to put some panel bond over that. We did a skim coat to make sure we get 100% good seal on there. So for that, saddlebag's ready to go for our topper. And then, like I said, we did cut that bevel angle on it. As you can see, it's no longer straight out like this. We cut it at an angle, so that way, once it sits back in here, like this, you can see it'll be right about there. You can see it's nice and tucked back, so that way the magnet or the basket of the speaker will not interfere with this. It'll be up out of its way. And then the last part of it was we had to cut our flange. That's where I was saying that's the downfall of using this with it being metal. It's such a good looking piece out of that billet, aluminum or steel or whatever it is. So we put it back on the bag and we had to shave this part off, so that way it would be flush on the side of the bag and you wouldn't see it from the back or the side or whatever. In a future video, we may do another one with a different style port, or we may 3D print our own with a template and everything. It'll make it a lot easier just to cut a hole, put the port in there, and you're done. So that's about a wrap for this part of our series on these bags being sealed and ported. I just wanted to take you through that process of it, or at least help show you what you're going to be getting yourself into if you decide you're like, hey, I want to go Killer Midbass, seal and port them. I'm hoping this shows you that process, especially when it comes to the Indians. The concept for the Harleys is about the exact same. The biggest difference is going to be where the port would go and the ring style and everything, because the bags are different. So that being said, this video is a wrap. We're going to go ahead and get this all prepped up for the following video, which is going to be the Nagy toppers. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, and I hope it helps you make the decision if you want to do this yourself or you want to send your bags down to us. We can do that for you and send them back to you fully complete so you can install them and enjoy them. So that being said, I'm Brandon with Davidson Audio, located here in beautiful Panama City, Florida.